Hello, friends. Welcome back to Links with Friends. Today is October 3rd, and we're doing government and security stories to share, also with your friends, at the start of the week.
Hello and welcome.
Well, here's a blast from the past. A much gentler time in our past when we thought that this was our biggest problem, or one of them. And in the meantime, the world did not crumble, but it has been inching toward badness since they've had these freedoms. And now Lady Rosenworcel, with her newfound power, is aiming to stop it.
With a new commissioner, the FCC will finally try to reinstate net neutrality. This article goes to painstaking links to point out that they tried to pass net neutrality in law and have failed. So they're going to try to just reverse policy and say ISPs are part of Title II.
Because they got the majority now, the Democrats do.
Yeah.
So good chance this will work.
As we were preparing for this, I was trying to think of a succinct way to explain like the history of net neutrality and like all that, but it's fairly detailed. Like there's a lot of stuff.
Just go back and watch the catalog.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't remember what year. Was that like 2017?
but it even goes before that because, you know, what kicked off net neutrality was like the whole BitTorrent versus not BitTorrent. And then we have technologies for dealing with that now. And then now it's ISPs want Netflix to pay twice because customers would dare use their internet connection to watch Netflix, which is also insane.
It's a mess. I don't know if this is necessarily going to fix it, but we tried it the other way. Maybe we should try it this way for a while. And artificial intelligence is infecting all of our lives. We all knew that this was coming, and I would say that this probably came a long time ago. But now they're choosing to tell us about it.
The CIA is building an AI chatbot. You know, you should overthrow that dictator. I'm sure we could get some arms.
This will be all over, message boards and social media.
Yeah, they are basically saying that, hey, we need to find people who are bad, and it's taking us too long, so we need to observe everything and find them with our AI.
Can you imagine in the future where the AI is talking to some South American gorilla and you know, you get a message on Facebook Messenger and it's like, hey, would you like to have some arms? And it's like, why are you messaging me? It's like, well, I figure we can get bananas cheaper if you overthrow the government.
Well, they wouldn't be that open. It would just say, do it, you won't.
Or mentally divergent teenagers on extremist message boards.
I'm pretty sure there's already been some dystopian sci-fi about exactly this thing.
Just to automate your crises so that you can expand your power. So easy.
We're probably already victim to this and we just are ignorant to it.
I think they're working a little harder now. You know what I'm saying? The AI will do it completely.
It's going to get rid of the disinformation actors who are getting paid.
I mean,
It's going to lose jobs.
Taking jobs.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that we've reported on where our own local police force is like, oh, we saved this guy was going to do something really terrible. And then you dig into it and it's like, this was just a mentally unhinged person that was entirely propped up by secret agents.
I love the headlines are always seconds before disaster. They swooped in, but they had been monitoring it since the beginning.
They were, in fact, there at the beginning.
Yeah, they fomented it
Yeah.
and then monitored it, and then it's disgusting. But it's the world we live in, and the world we live in also features the private sector working hand in hand with these monsters and giving them the information about us that is supposed to be legally protected. And you might be thinking, I know, you guys talk about this all the time, but no, there's a new way that they're doing it.
U.S. Counterintel buys access to the backbone of the internet to hunt for foreign hackers. And we've hinted at this before, like when we talk about the OPM hack or solar winds, because they knew about this well ahead of the companies involved. But I always go back to, if you have a solar winds level crisis imminent, why wouldn't you involve the people that are targeted? Why wouldn't you warn them?
So you might be thinking, well, we already have this with the NSA. Like, this is not anything new, right? But they point out the NSA can take days to return that information. Team Simru, how do you pronounce it?
There's like 4 names in here. Samaru, I think.
That's the big one. They have near instantaneous net flow data. So we're actually paying the NSA, we're funding the NSA to do this job, but then we're also paying these private people who do it better so that they can provide the information faster.
Woo! What have we found? We actually have found one other thing. Is that the next story? Or is that
Let's hope it was a good segue.
I'm not sure which one
No.
you're talking about.
Oh, it was the undetectable backdoors.
That's in the security section.
Oh, okay. Well, you're going to have to wait for the security episode. It turns out, monitoring this kind of stuff, there are some backdoors, and that is being shared, unlike what happened with Solar Winds, where it's like, well, the horses have escaped, and the horses have all been murdered. And it's like, yeah, we saw that happening. It's just why, you could have.
You didn't send me a text that the horses were all out? Be a good neighbor, buddy.
We should also point out that a VPN doesn't necessarily save you from this. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's so low level that they can still work out where the traffic is to and from. And so you think you're secure, but you're probably not. And you can't really do anything about it because you don't have access to the layer that they're spying on you on. You can maybe mail your packets. Now, you know what? They can search the mail.
They don't even have to open it. The imaging, the backscatter airport stuff is so good.
And the FTC has also, they probably saw the net neutrality stuff and they're like, we got to one up them. We got to do one better. We got to finally drop that big bomb that everybody's been waiting for.
Amazon faces landmark monopoly lawsuit by the FTC. This is it. This is finally it.
It's happening.
The case, there's like 9 points, but mostly it is, if you're a seller on Amazon, they basically force you to have Amazon warehouse and deliver your products, even if you could otherwise meet the requirements of prime shipping, which is basically you ship immediately as soon as you get an order. And the FTC says, well, that's not very fair to sellers, even sellers that are large enough to live up to that. Because what if Target wants to sell on Amazon? Surely they could manage their own fulfillment at that scale, but Amazon simply does not allow you to do that.
And the price fixing.
And search fixing.
The advertising and prioritizing their own products. There's quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few things.
It'd be a shame if you had a popular product on Amazon that you weren't paying into this. It would just disappear from searches and people couldn't find your products.
She was asked about breaking up Amazon. Is that the end goal? She sidestepped around it, but not too carefully. I think she kind of left it saying like, yeah, we could explore that, which means probably we're definitely going to try.
I could see Amazon fulfillment being different than Amazon search being different than Amazon web services.
We'll see. And another big company who is facing a very similar kind of trial right now is, we learned last week, a little upset because their embarrassing not trade secrets, just embarrassing emails are being put out there for everybody to see their corruption. They don't like that. Last week, the judge was a little tentative. I imagine he read those articles. I think it's a he. It's Meta, Judge Meta. Now, this week, a little bit different tone.
Judge says Google can't keep hiding its dealings during the DOJ antitrust trials. Look, fellas, this is going to come out. You'd better prepare for it. I sympathize to an extent, but...
Just mentally prepare for what's about to come.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
And they point out several instances in the article of things that are severely damning and embarrassing that they've already uncovered from these documents. So I imagine there's a lot more to come.
There's a lot in these documents that I'm sure that if you take the time to read, you'll think, this isn't illegal. Like there's not already in all these laws that we have that would take more than a human lifetime to read that this is okay.
We found a loophole.
Lucky for them, nobody takes time to read. That's why you're here.
Though we do link the articles below in the one tab if you're ever interested.
Sometimes we forget it and people complain, and I feel good about that.
Yeah, people are reading it, I think.
And the FTC, I guess, bolstered by all this, upswell of attacking big tech, they couldn't get over it. They were like, you know what? We're going to reset one of our recent L's. We're going to turn that into a W.
The U.S. FTC sets the date for an internal arguments on Microsoft deal to buy Activision. This is going to go through. This is a formality. This is just a political song and dance. I'm sad to say.
It's scheduled for like October 20 or something like that. So they got a real short amount of time.
Who wants the corpse of Blizzard at this point? They're basically asking, hey, can we bury it? No one else is going to.
Yeah, in other news in the business section, there were a lot of Blizzard layoffs.
And another way that we are being tracked, if it wasn't enough that they were doing the net flow and, spying on all your communications and everything else, here's one that they're going to force you to give up your own information if you want to do business.
The SEC wants to spy on your portfolio. Have you executed a trade? Any trade? The SEC would like to know. And they're going to use your social security number to do it. Remind me again why the SEC needs access to this? Like this? This is to stop fraud?
Your broker claims that they need it to identify you. which maybe, I don't know. I mean, so it's large sums of money be floating around there, but based on this, seems like it was a bad idea. And the Google trial continues to rage on. We continue to hear interesting things. And a lot of the interesting things we're hearing are not from Google themselves, but their partners in crime, where they are defending some of the things that they did that seem a little monopolist enabling.
Apple defends Google search deal in court. Quote unquote, there wasn't a valid alternative. What are they talking about? Well, Google pays Apple a lot of money to be the default search engine on a lot of Apple products. And the judge said to Apple, why are you doing that? And the actual on the record under oath answer was, would you have us Bing them?
Yeah, it's the only one that doesn't suck, according to him. They also asked him, why do you not let me choose this when I'm setting up my phone? His excuse for that was, that's too cumbersome. We want our users to be set up and ready to go instantly.
That's definitely, why they asked me the same things 58 times for using Apple services, right? It's like, you really need an iCloud account. You need an iCloud account.
I get
really think you
begged
should
for
have
that
an iCloud
constantly.
account.
And imagine what it's going to be like once they get blocked from the targeted ad and you have to opt in. Imagine how hard they're going to go on that during the setup. So, of course, it was all lies, but, interesting lies, I suppose. You know what? I must have missorted the...
There's a lot of really interesting stuff coming out of that court case. It's amazing.
But another one of your freedoms that are just being trampled all over. So if something bad happens on the internet and you just go to spectate, if you just want to stand next to the dumpster and look at it as it burns, be careful.
Security researcher warns of chilling effect after feds search his phone at the airport. Why did the feds have him on a list? Well, they didn't contact him directly. They just waited for him to go through a border checkpoint as an excuse to image his phone. Why were they interested in him particularly? Because they found his IP address. Why did they find his IP address? Because he figured out that a piece of malware had an Ethereum wallet address in it, or an Ethereum private key. And so he showed up looking for the contents of that private key. Of course, somebody else got the contents of that. But because he did that from his home connection, because he's a security researcher, his IP address was logged, and that's what they used as a basis to get the warrant to identify him, which is insane. And then they just sort of quietly, surreptitiously collected his phone, and then a lawyer got involved, and the lawyer made it go away. But good Lord.
Oh, we also got a grand jury subpoena.
Yeah.
But he didn't end up showing up for that because once they did just a little bit of police work, just a smidgen, they figured out who he was.
Yeah.
He said they had a manila envelope of his Twitter, his picture, and some of his work. And he was like, you have it right there.
Just to read it. These documents can't stop me because I can't read.
He was also like, okay, you see what I do here. You see, what my interest is, my level of knowledge about this stuff. I used my real IP address to visit that site. You understand? I wouldn't have done that. Yeah. They don't understand.
No, in fact, they do not. And I would be surprised if his phone is not deleted at all. Like, they just keep it and have it there forever.
Or it's got a 0 day.
Yeah, that's what they do. So this is very sad day for America.
Now, let me throw out a little bit of a Wendell spoiler here. We have a Signal story later where the Signal lady makes an argument that AI is basically just surveillance. Like, it's basically being introduced and tolerated by the government because it is a perfect surveillance machine. She has some compelling points as to why that might be true. Through that lens, the story might make a little more sense.
The White House could force cloud companies to disclose AI customers. Look at this.
Why? Because the usual terror, fraud, what have you.
Yeah.
We need to be able to go back and track them down if they do something wrong. So you have to tell us everything about your customers.
We might mention it in the business section, but IBM announced and offered their AI tool this week, which interestingly indemnifies you against a lawsuit if you use it. So if you use IBM's AI thing and somebody sues you for copyright, IBM's lawyers will handle it for you, which is interesting and is tangentially related to this White House thing because IBM's going to be in a better position if something like this disclosure law goes through to say, hey, it's not the Wild West. We have better AI tools than other people, which is interesting.
Well, they will be using that information to catch all those horrible terrorists, people who, for example, might be running gas stoves or preventing things on their cars that make them work more poorly. And that's not the only thing they're doing. They're also attacking eBay.
U.S. sues eBay over sale of harmful products, where harmful products in this scenario is defined as something that lets your car fire on all of its cylinders.
I thought they were going to say like cursed doll heads or something, which is usually what eBay's full of.
I used to have one of those, but I lost it in a boating accident. There was also some chemicals on there, which probably are a little more realistic in terms of, like some things that are like, oh, this is poisoning the world. We shouldn't sell that. And people on eBay were like, oh, no, yes, we will.
Has anybody in the chat noticed how hard it is to buy Sudafed anymore? It's just...
That's been the case for years. It used to get an age check when I was working as a cashier.
How long until we've got a mandatory AI on your phone that's just like, hey, I noticed that you've bought these products from these different sources lately. I'm going to have to file a report.
The ATF is way ahead of you. And we have the facial recognition war of, some of our leaders want it to constantly surveil us. Other ones don't. They argue for the wrong reasons. They continue to argue for the wrong reasons, but at least we get a slight reprieve in our schools.
New York bans facial recognition in schools after a report finds the risks outweigh the potential benefits. Oh, really? You needed somebody to file a report for you? I would have given you the same report for half the money without even doing any of the work.
You mean there's a live feed of children at school all day?
So it's like risks, there's a full column, and then benefits. My cousin's AI company gets a contract. What else is there?
My cousin's really a screw up. He really needs this.
And once again, the FCC, they really seem to have, I think the fall weather, might have just
invigorated them
got them ready to do some serious work.
FCC closing loophole that gave robocallers easy access to U.S. phone numbers. We reported on this last week. This seemed like this was last week or the week before. It seemed like this was going to go through. This has, in fact, gone through. The FCC could revoke phone network access to these small and rural providers that are providing overseas access to overseas companies via the internet. So it's like you call up a small phone company and you say, hey, we'll give you these suitcases of cash if you just connect some VoIP tunnels to your local phone circuit. And, a small town phone company says, oh, we need money. But there's at least going to be some repercussions for them now.
Well, you ever play Fallout and you shoot the cars too many times?
Or literally any video game.
Causes a nuclear explosion. Because those were nuclear powered cars. They had little tiny nuclear reactors in them. And now it doesn't have to be a fantasy anymore.
The DoD exercises an option on a second micronuclear reactor design. Microsoft is also researching this, but we'll have more on that later.
That's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Give me one of those. Send me out in the woods.
Neighborhood level small nuclear reactor that's just going to last 20 years.
Personal. I want personal.
Well, then you have to upkeep it. What if there's a problem with your mini reactor?
I'll just throw it away and get another one.
Just throw it out in the woods behind the house. There's nothing wrong here. Nothing bad will happen.
There really are designs out there for micronuclear reactors that are designed to be brought in on just, regular old tractor trailers and buried. It's like you just bury it and you plug in an electric cord and it just does everything itself.
Well, get ready to jump in the time machine, because here's a story that's been cooking for a very, very long time. And there's been a lot of twists and turns, but we're not even close to a resolution.
European Commission hits Intel with a new fine over antitrust findings. This is a year after we reported on this previously. The fine had been zeroed out. But this stems from a 20-year-old court case. The first time that AMD had faster processors than Intel, Intel perhaps reacted badly to that. And eventually, they were found guilty of acting badly and in bad faith and anti-competitively. Were fined $1 billion. Of course, they appealed. And then eventually, they went back and forth a bunch of times. 20 years ensued. They won their appeal, so they didn't have to pay anything. But now the fine has been reinstated for $400 million instead of $1 billion.
You left out an important point there, and that might have weighed into this. I mean, they'll never admit it, but they had the audacity to try and countersue or appeal and say that they should be paid interest on the money that was held during that time that they got back. So this might be a little slap on the wrist.
Oops.
And here's a company that we rarely see in the crosshairs of the regulators. But I agree with this one. I believe that video games should have a value, and it should be an absolute value, not geolocated value.
Valve fails to get out of paying its EU geo-blocking fine. Valve violated UE rules by creating artificial price differences between national markets, a court ruled. Pay attention here. This is also how some discount Windows keys sites do their thing as well, is because it's not legal in the EU.
Almost all. Well, some people claim that a lot of them are stolen. I don't know if that's just, like industry dogma, but most of the time you go to a poor country, you buy a bunch of keys, you sell them on your key site.
Yeah.
Valve was stopping this from happening by restricting those keys from being registered in other countries.
That sounds anti-capitalistic. Isn't the whole point of capitalism to do that? Also, was that a typo in the headline UE instead of EU?
You said UE.
I did say UE.
It's EU.
Oh, yeah.
But it's in the headline.
You pulled
underneath, yeah.
You pulled an anchor man there.
Yeah.
He'll read anything on the teleprompter.
I thought it might be a French site. It's like European Union or Union European. I don't know.
That's just AI generated.
Yeah.
We don't have time to do it right anymore.
And that
French foreshadowing.
if it was AI generated, it was probably done with Nvidia technology, and they are also in a bit of trouble over in the EU.
Nvidia's French office is raided in cloud computing competition inquiry, Wall Street Journal reports. This is going to be interesting, perhaps. It'll be interesting to see what comes of this.
Gonna be is the operative phrase there, because we don't know anything about it other than they were willing to admit it was GPU related.
Raid is a pretty tough word to use in a headline like that.
How else would you describe them showing up
Yeah,
and storming the office and taking your electronics?
They thought the evidence would be destroyed, which is pretty damning.
And the big Signal interview, which generated a lot of stories. This gal had a lot of things to say, and most of them were interesting. But here she is reiterating that after they passed the online safety bill, is that what was it called? What's the name of that?
Yeah,
For the UK.
For the UK,
Yeah.
She originally threatened, hey, if you do this, we might just leave. Now they've done it.
Meredith Whittaker reaffirms that Signal would leave the UK if forced by the privacy bill. And the privacy bill has gone through and Signal's pulling out.
They effed around and they found out, right?
I don't think they've confirmed that yet, because remember the day before they signed the bill, they were like, well, maybe we won't do this encryption stuff. But I think they will.
If it goes through, they'll have to.
So
there's a lot of very prescient predictions for the future. So like you could almost copy paste what she's saying into a level 1 predicts, and in a year or two, it'll be, oh, she was right.
Because the EU says you cannot have secrecy. You, as a person, as an individual, your secrecy is too dangerous, and you must not be allowed to communicate in ways that they cannot spy upon. And then you turn around and you read this headline.
Prince Andrew files to remain secret until 2065.
To be fair, this is the UK, not the EU. But still.
Presumably someone knows, so it's not a secret from everyone. It's just
They've definitely got it.
Yeah, they mentioned that they have all his like travel logs and all this stuff, but it's all sealed.
I'm pretty sure that by 2065, your current day Signal encryption would be defeatable. Like it would be hackable. So isn't it effective? Like you can have secrecy today, but by 2065, you can break the encryption. So it would be the same, right? So you should be able to have personal privacy and encryption.
But also, it's highly, highly unlikely that there will still be a monarchy in 2065.
Yeah.
And certainly everybody involved will be dead, and so will we. Everybody who cared will be dead. There's going to be one weird guy who writes a book about this in 2065. Nobody will
Historians, will care.
And then this weird decision was handed down in 2023 where these files were archived because they were so embarrassing and terrible.
Well, apparently there was a note in this article that said like anything about the royal family and their traveling and stuff, like all that is not covered by the Freedom of Information Act version for the UK.
Of course not.
Yeah.
How lustful are our leaders for that?
Yeah.
God, we need that. We're kings. And Australia is doing this is a weird one for Australia. They almost exclusively go in the other direction. I wonder if there's a hidden barb in here somewhere.
Government to overhaul privacy laws, including opting out of advertising, a right to be forgotten, and new rules for small businesses. This almost seemed to me to be like a monkey's paw kind of thing, where
What's the catch?
it's going to allow a lot of what we on this program say is bad behavior by companies, but at the same time, it also gives individuals the right to say, "Hey, forget about me. I don't want you to have any data." This kind of thing. So, do we get in this weird paradox where you go to check your Gmail, you read your email, and then as you're logging out of Gmail, you say, "Oh, by the way, forget everything about me, but keep this stuff."
I mean, I think if given that ability, most people would choose forget my advertising profile. Who would say yes to that?
Yeah.
People who don't know that that setting exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we could educate them.
Yeah. Can you imagine writing an AI assistant that's just going to go do that for you through browser automation?
Yeah, and then they're going to partner up with OpenAI and switch it around to be the opposite of that.
If you're Australian, tell us what's the missing thing that we're not seeing here. Because I didn't see things.
Now, if you've followed any of the coverage of Apple and China from the past decade and a half, you will note that every time China says jump, Apple immediately jumps as high as they possibly can. They will do whatever they're told because they want to keep their business there, and they know that China won't tolerate their crap, which makes this one really interesting.
China lists mobile app stores that comply with its new rules, but Apple is missing.
So obviously, Tencent was the big one. Samsung had one in there. I guess they're the only foreign one. Xiaomi, but no Apple. And the chip war is still raging on. And China, with their Huawei phone they've just introduced, may have gotten a huge win over us. And now they might be looking to extend that lead.
China just stopped exporting two minerals the world's chip makers need: germanium and what was the other one?
Gallium.
Gallium. We reported on this last week, but this CNN story has a lot more details and developments from this. The production is not yet crippled, but the market supply is labeled tight. So that might be a bit of a problem.
Some reporters asked the mineral guy in China, they're like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And he was like, "Well, some people submitted requests and some of them were fulfilled." He didn't expand on it any further. So we can assume that that was on purpose. We also learn about, of course, we've talked about this in the past, but almost any interaction you have with law enforcement will result in, maybe even healthcare, will result in your DNA being cataloged by the powers that be here in the United States, which is terrifying. But as usual, China #1 when it comes to this kind of thing.
China's quest for human genetic data spurs fears of a DNA arms race. Let's collect and catalog it all. Oh, we found somebody that can just spontaneously regrow livers. We'll use that to grow a new liver for everybody.
Although the thing that they mentioned that they were scared of in this article was, what if they discovered some sort of gene that like they could target with the disease? And it was like, oh. And then they're like, we don't think China's doing that, but what if?
Oh, we do think China's doing that because we're doing it. I guarantee that we're doing that. So it turns out that during the big past crisis that we just went through, the Chinese were very friendly in that they sent a lot of countries something called the FireEye, which was a genetic testing apparatus to test for that thing that we were all so terrified of. And it turns out that now there's maybe some suspicion that that's not the only thing it was doing with that DNA that was being fed to it.
It's a huge database, which is very handy for doing things.
The Chinese are also a little late to the AI party, but they're here in a big way, and they are ready to find out who is the best.
China's AI war of 100 models heads for a shakeout. So rumors of China backing off from AI research and the whole Baidu, Alibaba thing are greatly exaggerated. Like Jack Ma's company and that, we reported on that probably like a month or two ago. No, it turns out they're embracing it fully, full speed ahead.
They're rumored to have as many as 150 AI models floating around. And so a lot of the big players in the game are saying this is unsustainable. We must consolidate down to a few. So it's time for the market to decide. By market, I mean the Communist Party. And the maybe the days of us being constantly at odds with China in terms of our governments are coming to a close. I don't know, but an olive branch has been tentatively extended.
U.S. exploring potential Space Force hotline with China. It's like the red phone.
They're doing it internally, though. They haven't actually reached out to China for it.
Maybe they have, and nobody picked up, and they're embarrassed.
All the Reddit UFO people are saying this is because there's so much UFO phenomena that China and the U.S. have no idea what's going on. That's what it's for. But I don't know if that's. I mean,
The Reddit UFO people also believed that mummies were
yeah,
UFOs. So
yeah. Fun times.
sometimes they have interesting insights. Sometimes you got to be like, okay.
Oh, it can't be bad, right?
Yeah.
World governments actually being communicating with one another. That seems like a good move. Seems like we could do that. Well, that it can be bad because remember the whole Five Eyes NSA thing.
You think the first call on that is sorry about the balloons again?
Well, who's apologizing? Us or them?
Us, because they weren't actually spying.
Wow.
I mean, they had spy equipment on board, but it wasn't turned on.
It wasn't active. We probably already had messed with it.
I think that's a technicality that we can look over.
Is that a psych? Is that a game of chicken? It's just like, we just wanted to see what you would do.
Do you think they have like, when we do a call, you always have that like, how's your week going? Like, do they have that awkward moment? But it's like through a translator.
Did y'all get rain?
Yeah, massive floods actually.
Fun time.
Typhoon after typhoon. Well, that's not the only way that we are reaching out to the Chinese in seemingly a reversal of the previous trends.
United States and China launch economic and financial working groups with aim of easing tensions. Well, that's good. We need more of that.
I guarantee you, I would bet any amount of money, there's not a single person in the Chinese Communist Party who takes Janet Yellen serious.
There's, at the same time, there are a lot of people, like individuals, that just want to get along and don't want to play some sort of Machiavellian, global world stage, whatever.
And those people never get into government.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've learned that one of the big hot things in China, and I think Japan has started picking up on it too, is rather than going to, let's say, Amazon for your shopping needs, you constantly watch TikTok and buy the products that are showcased there.
This has to be like QVC for people.
Yeah.
It is, but it's kind of like a QVC with the algorithm added
Tailoring,
onto it to make you more. Did you see the thing about the guy who was selling, I think it was eyeliner? So
Guyliner.
They don't let the women on those shows, so it's hilarious. They actually do put the makeup on the guys. But one of the most famous guys, people were complaining in the chat about how expensive it was. And he was like, oh, you're a loser if you can't pay $10 for this. And there was a massive backlash from the Chinese people. So other countries are looking at that kind of thing and they're like, yeah, you know what? I don't think we want that here.
Indonesia bans purchases on social media in a blow to TikTok's e-commerce ambitions. So actually, there's something that's lost in translation here with the CNBC article, but the way that it was happening was definitely very impulse buy, and TikTok was kind of facilitating the e-commerce part of that. But I do think that that's not a good commerce model. Think about like the checkout aisle at the store. It's like, oh, it's an impulse buy. I'm going to buy, candy or whatever it is that's in the impulse buy article. Indonesia is saying we shouldn't do that because people will buy a bunch of crap they don't need.
In doing so, you do sort of reveal that you have contempt for your people.
Yeah.
You don't think they're capable of
self-control,
any sort of thought.
Yeah.
We have that here too. And we have that in Japan, who has decided that they're going to do all of the bad things that we've already tried that have turned out to be terribly racist and awful.
Japan police announced they're going to stamp out online criminal activity with the help of AI. This is definitely not a descent into the most dystopian of timelines.
So this is not general crime yet. I'm sure it will be. But apparently in Japan, they have this phenomenon where, you know how like sometimes people looking for construction work will just go hang out at Lowe's and see if anybody drops by to pick them up. Apparently in Japan, they have that with crime. People just online, just like, hey, if you want me to do some crime, I'm here. I'm ready.
like a literal mercenary, like in Baldur's Gate or something. It's like, hey, I have a quest.
But not even, like with the mercenary, you would expect to have some kind of like operator skills. But these guys are just like, yeah,
I'll do some crimes.
Was that one of the stories we talked about on stream? There was a 75-year-old that was lonely that became a getaway driver for a gang.
I think it's similar. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Wouldn't that be terrible? Because they'd go so slow.
He got shot. It was sad.
Oh.
Anyway, they are looking for this AI to find that kind of thing and stop it before it happens.
Is there going to be some sort of strange shift in the language where the word crime doesn't show up anymore and you start saying something else instead?
What was your dog grooming? I need 10 fairly strong men for some late night dog grooming. Well, China relations might be trying to be patched up a little bit, but this is not going to help things. This is going to be a rough conversation starter when they pick up the bat phone every week and start talking.
Backdoored firmware lets China's state hackers control routers with magic packets. So this stems from the other thing. There's not a lot of details on this yet, but...
I'm so tired. I thought that picture was of an apartment building, and I was like, what are those blue things coming out of the windows?
Those are the robots that are harvesting you. And here's a terrifying one, and it's probably not quite as dangerous as we think, but maybe we're going to have to go back to like one tab per browser.
Yeah.
If you have 10,000 tabs open, you're way more susceptible to this. Be careful.
GPUs from all major suppliers are vulnerable to new pixel stealing attack. So this has to do with the way that GPUs do texture compression internally. You can reconstruct what's in a different browser tab. This is amazing. It takes about 30 minutes. It runs very slow. It's a side channel attack. It's not very practical, but it is amazing that they found this.
And it's terrifying because it's exactly the kind of thing that is very difficult to do and probably not practical to do for the regular rank and file people, but for corporate and government espionage, they're going to be all over it.
Yeah.
The spear phishing game just went up a notch. If you're MGM Casinos, time to do a new team building where you teach about this. And here's a lot of nebulous articles this week.
Yeah.
No details, just this threat.
Ransomware group claims to have breached all of Sony systems, and Sony has updated and said they're investigating, but nothing has been confirmed as of the time we're shooting this.
It was also, to say all systems, the proof that they showed was like a 6 gigabyte file. Something tells me Sony has more than, 6,000 files, 6,000 total files. I think Sony might have more.
Yeah.
Overall.
They could maybe release the firmware signing keys for their cameras, so we could have some nice custom firmware for Sony cameras. That'd be nice.
Oh, that's terrorism. The AI is looking for exactly that. And speaking of the Las Vegas hacks, we now have a little bit more information, but still nothing concrete.
MGM and Caesars Casino, their hacks point to an alliance between teens and ransomware gangs. Fascinating.
You go to school and then you come home, you have a snack, and you're like, let me get in with this ransomware gang.
It's probably just like the Terminator 2 style. Oh, I've made the ATM cough up lots and lots of money, except the ATM in this case is a slot machine or something.
They definitely painted them as like losers who didn't have anything to do, so they were hanging out on these questionable message boards.
Forum.level1text.com.
Of course, they claim the Russians swooped in and gathered them up. It's always the Russians. And I put this in the security section, but after reading it, I don't know that we're sure this was security, but it certainly seems likely.
Volkswagen hit by an IT outage. Volkswagen vehicle production in Germany halted. The only comment that I saw on this was, well, when this happened with Toyota, it was because the hard drive was full. And it's like, are you saying that because misdirection? Are you saying that because that's what happened? Because Toyota's not Volkswagen. Why would you say that? Like, I don't, what are you doing?
I'll tell you what they're not doing.
Making cars.
And we have another exploit. This time is in your, this is just in the browser, just like the other one. And this one is very, very awful, or so they say. But once again, very, very light on the details here.
A new Chrome 0 day is sending the internet into a new chapter of Groundhog Day. If your software package involves VP8 video encoding, it is likely vulnerable to attack. So Chrome and Edge are affected, but Safari and Firefox are not. This is because Chrome and Edge used an open source library that was affected by a security issue for decoding.
VLC media player is affected.
Yeah.
Tragically. I'm sure they'll patch that right up.
Here's your reminder to immediately go update your VLC.
And this is your reminder as to when we do all these articles about people who are upset because the bounty programs won't pay them or jerk them around or whatever. This is what happens. This is why the bounty programs need to step it up.
Russian zero-day seller offers $20 million US bounty for hacking Android and iPhones. So basically, if you've got a security exploit, they'll give you full control over a remote iPhone with no interaction. This guy says they'll give you $20 million.
Now, there's a level of trust there I don't know that I would have.
Yeah.
But 20 million is a lot more than Apple or Google's going to give you for that, if anything.
Which is,
If anything, they'll probably just be mad at you for
They
exposing
might
it.
even call the cops. This is not.
I love this website.
Not a news site, but what a great website, right? And they got to be riding high on all the reports of the NFTs being completely valueless. Now they have found another exchange.
Web3 is going great. Reports JPEX appears to be a $191 million fraud. JPEX was a crypto exchange, and it turns out that it wasn't even an exchange. It was just a scandal.
There's so many little items in this list.
Yeah, this is a great site. They have a lot of ammo for their site, don't they?
They do, yeah.
That was an excellent idea for a website.
Does that scale the timeline?
So
If so, I bet I know what library it uses. See if it scales.
Like shrink the window.
Yeah. Does it go
To a point, yeah.
Does it go tinier? This is not important, but for my own weirdness, I have to know. I don't even see where the cursor is. Oh, no. You didn't see that, chat.
Well, we'll catch you next week.
I'm glad that was the last story.
All right. Well, anyway, have a good day. Bye.